So this was me in 1968, a final year student at Barker College in Hornsby. And at that time, movies to me were multi-million dollar productions from Hollywood and from Pinewood. And then one day I escaped from my house, the suburb where I was living in Wahroonga, and ended up in Glebe, where I found this, a poster advertising a screening of so-called underground movies that were to be screened at the then Union Theatre at Sydney University by a group calling themselves Ubu Films. In early September 1968, I joined a sold-out crowd at the Union Theatre, and there I saw 17 short films assembled by Ubu. And on that night, I guess my whole attitude to art, my whole attitude to movies, in fact, my whole life changed. Here were short films made on a shoestring outside any industrial system, using non-professional actors, if indeed there were any actors used at all, using radical storytelling techniques, indeed if there were any story involved, and using unconventional camera techniques, if indeed there was even a camera used. But probably the most radical thing about this series of films, or a good number of them, was that they were Australian movies, made by Australians and screening to an Australian audience. You see, I'd always thought, or I guess I'd been told, that Australians couldn't make movies, and if we did, then the audience, the Australian audience, didn't want to see them. Anyway, I hung around the Union Theatre for several nights, and I picked up a lot of literature, leaflets and newspapers and various things that had been left there by the guys from Ubu. And I worked out that the leading lights in this Ubu films seemed to be three guys, Aggie Reed, Albie Toms and David Perry. Later I found out about another guy called John Clark. Anyway, the three guys all had beards, and they seemed to come from the basement of a terrace house in Redfern. Watching those movies that night, picking up all this information, I was immediately seized by three great ambitions. First of all, I wanted to grow a beard. Secondly, I wanted to live in a terrace house in the inner city. And thirdly, I wanted to be a filmmaker. Well, it's 29 years later, and I haven't stopped shooting movies. I've still got the beard, and the terrace house is just over here in the cross. Collecting the posters, the leaflets, the articles, the images of films together in this book, Peter Moody has sort of brought back to life a cultural phenomenon, a groundbreaking Australian cultural movement that produced, exhibited and distributed Australian and overseas films in a network of cinemas all around Australia to tens of thousands of Australians who, like me, had never seen an Australian film before. For my generation of aspiring filmmakers that I met there at Ubu screenings and meetings, Ubu Films